Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pump House's series of artist talks. My name's Olivia, and I'm the gallery coordinator here at the Pump House. And today I am joined by Quentin Brown, whose current exhibition, King Salad, is currently on display in our front gallery through November 2nd, 2024. So thank you for joining me today, Quentin.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Of course. So why don't we start with you giving us a background of what you've done in the arts?
Sure. I graduated from Viterbo in 99, got a job as a high school art teacher in West Salem in 2000. Have been there ever since. Been making a lot of artwork on the side since that time. Also a local musician. Done some shows locally in terms of art shows. Also had one down in Madison and just kind of been enjoying cranking out stuff maybe every year or 2 years.
Great. And as we get into your show, people see that it's mostly abstract work. Have you pretty much always worked in abstraction?
Yeah, I kind of made the switch way back in like 2006 and then started working on stuff that was more influenced by like Mondrian and Diebenkorn, artists like that were kind of hooked to 90 degrees. And more recently, I've kind of branched out and there's still some of that squareness there, but kind of branching out more into stuff that's maybe biomorphic, stuff that has little nods towards animation, things like that.
Great. Well, how about we get into a few pieces of your show? Could you start by telling us the inspiration behind this specific series?
Yeah, well, I work a lot by sketching, sketchbooks. I have tons of these little pocket sketchbooks, and I walk around with them a lot. I have them in my house and try to shut off the critical brain and just start making lines and turning lines into shapes, doing a lot of, editing and refining. These, actually, the To Be Fair series came out of me simply drawing on a little IBIS app on my phone, working with line thickness and then zooming way in and trying to erase certain lines that crisscross in ways that they shouldn't, trying to find some depth in my work. They've been pretty flat up until recently, trying to get that idea of pushing perspective a little bit. I'm still hooked into this idea of working in a square. I haven't been able to get out of that for a while. But with these, they started as, like I said, sketches on my phone, just using my finger. And then I printed them, projected them. I still work old school. I've got one of those old school overhead projectors that I project the image onto, some sort of smooth substrate. In this case, these are just panel boards, and I had to sand them down, hand sand them, sand the edges, get them smooth, and then simply projected on there, drew them on there, and then went to town with. I use a lot of house paint, interior house paint. I love the smooth quality of it. I love the way that it lays on in a way that I like that's solid in like three coats, and then went over it with a pen. I've always been into working with just that specific black generic Bic pen. That's been my um, go-to whenever I work trying to outline things. I tried that idea of, a real long brush and smoothly going over it like, sign painters, the guys that hand paint signs. Really been into that lately. I just can't replicate that yet with my technique, so I used a Bic pen instead. And I really love how the Bic pen, when you go over it enough, it kind of has a coppery feel to it.
Great. And something that I find very unique about your pieces is that you don't put a wash of, white gesso over your canvases or your panels. Is there a specific reason why you like to leave the raw wood and the wood grain in the background of your paintings?
I mean, the more I think about it, the more I've kind of analyzed why I do that. I think just it comes from a couple things. It comes from working as a landscaper, trying to be true to the materials. In the summer, my wife and I have our own landscaping business. And when I was younger, my dad was a mason, a concrete guy, and always working with the materials and being really true to letting the materials show. And my dad did a lot of wood burning when I was younger. So there was a lot of wood, pieces of wood laying around, and it was always like letting that surface be the surface and trying not to hide it in any way.
Great. All right. Let's move into this series. This series is different from the other works in your show. Could you describe your process behind this and what drew you to switch over from painting these forms into sculptural forms?
Yeah, I'm always trying to push it a little bit and just seeing what I can do and how they transfer into other materials. And these using a CNC machine, I had to draw them all on Adobe Illustrator first and upload them to the CNC machine and kind of plot out where the depths were and trying to get actual depth. And again, letting the material be the material, just letting it, painting it white and like a real glossy enamel coat, just letting the shadows kind of do the work for these. But the idea is still the same. Sketch out on paper first, transfer to some sort of digital media, and then be able to use that digital media to the advantage and have the machines cut them out. There was a while where I was hand cutting these, and I'm just not that prolific of a woodworker to be able to make them as smooth as I wanted. And somebody, was like, why don't you try like routering them out using like a CNC machine, have the technology work for you instead of you working against your limited use of technology.
Great. And obviously these are fully painted white, but I've noticed that white is a fairly prominent color in your paintings, kind of like it's the focus and then you're adding color around it. Is there a specific reason for working mostly in white and the primary colors?
Yeah, I think that with the white thing, it stems back to like my childhood, like watching a lot of cartoons and sci-fi stuff. There's always big white spaceships or the good guys wearing white or, the stormtroopers helmets look nice and slick with just that white. And the white was always kind of, prominent in like, my day-to-day existence as well. Like I really like the idea of like white stucco buildings, large shopping malls, and that idea of just being this kind of beacon that people are drawn to. And I think that's where the white actually comes from. I spent a lot of time thinking about that, and I think that's where it comes from. The primary colors are still basically stuck, adhering to those ideas and ideals of Mondrian still, just those pops of intense color and not trying to deviate too much from that. Although lately they've been deviating, but that's where the basic premise comes from.
Great. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. Let's move into this series. Could you give us a background on this work? And I'm specifically interested, you stated in your artist statement and just recently that you're very inspired by um, pop art and comics and even traffic lights. As you're walking through life, where do you find the inspiration for these pieces?
Yeah, a lot of these were, again, trying to get out of that idea of keeping everything 90 degrees, pushing that idea of what a square shape can be pushed into, and setting them up together from left to right, that idea that they look like they kind of tumble in a way, and still adhering to that idea of positive negative in terms of, what's dominating the substrate in this, particular series. But really, it's some of these things are, things that artists see, like, you go past a stoplight and it leaves a trail of color as you're driving by, and you're like, ooh, that is kind of a cool shape. I wonder if there's a way I can mimic that. Or just that intensity of three colors, being a traffic light and trying to reproduce. How can I do things in with a specific set of boundaries as opposed to using everything at my disposal?
Great. All right. Well, I highly recommend everyone come to our artist reception on October 4th. You can see Quentin's work as well as the other artists in our galleries. And Quentin, before we leave, is there anything that you would like people to keep in mind when viewing your work in person?
No, just hopefully that people can come and hang out. I'll be there. And if anybody has any questions and any visceral reactions you want to discuss about the work, I'm there for that as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Quentin, and thank you everybody for watching.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.